opinion. Anytime you try to talk, they just shoot you down. Anytime you try to speak in your own defense, they just turn and tell you what you saying and make no sense. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about me. Nobody cares if you have a disability. The soccer warriors, they call the friends to go up to Germany. All of them get $1 million and awards for everybody. But the blind cricket team, they win the tournament up in Jamaica. It's the coach who get the award. The team may even get Kakada. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about me. Nobody cares if you have a disability.
This Sunday, on episode 22 of Eye on Dependency, where every life is a biography.
We live in an ableist society. One where persons with disabilities face discrimination, social exclusion, or prejudice, and are made to feel inferior to able-bodied citizens. Have you ever denied a disabled person an opportunity for education or employment, or parked in a designated spot, or considered how disabled persons in a world not designed for nor accessible to them? This Sunday, Garth and Natasha discuss the challenges of living while blind in Trinidad and Tobago with two guests.
Hello everyone, my name is Bhawani and in celebration of Blindness Awareness Period 2023, I am happy to share the spotlight with my colleague Asha Alexander on the Eye on Dependency program.
Listen live from 10 a.m. on I-95.5 FM or watch live on the Eye on Dependency Facebook page or YouTube channel. Eye on Dependency. We don't just share stories, we change lives.
Eye on Dependency with Garth and Natasha.
Reality radio at its best, where every life is a biography.
Sundays at 10 a.m. and exclusively on I-95.5 FM.
And streamed live on the Eye on Dependency Facebook page and YouTube channel.
Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago, and welcome to Eye on Dependency, right here on I-95.5, live on the Eye on Dependency Facebook page and YouTube channel. Good morning, Natasha.
Good morning, Garth. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome to Eye on Dependency, and welcome to all of you tuned in on I-95.5 FM and on Facebook and YouTube.
This morning, thanks Tom and Tom for blessing us with those two tracks. One from Almanac that I've heard for quite a while. Build a Better World, and you know Almanac 2 was blind, and followed by Lingo.
Yep.
And Lingo is lamenting the fact that nobody cares. Well, could check him out a bit. Some of us do, some of us do, and this morning we're demonstrating that because we know that it's easy and it's simple. As night follows day, you can go to bed and wake up not seeing anything, or you can, as simple as getting into an accident and you rendered disabled. It can happen at any point in time.
Become ill for some reason and lose one of your senses. It can happen to anyone at any time.
At any time. No one is exempt from this. It's just that there are those who have gone before us with this and they are battling with it, and we know it's a battle. So today we intend to highlight that, and I know it's a lot of things that some of you may have overlooked for quite a while. And just this week, last week actually, there was the discussion from the Equal Opportunities Commission, I think it was, speaking about this very same thing, disability. So this is Blind Awareness Month, and we thank Jennifer Oraho Daulat for keeping us on top of this and keeping us on our toes with regards to paying attention to this community. And we thank them too as well for their resilience. I, as a normal citizen, find it very difficult to even walk the streets.
Able-bodied.
Able-bodied normal citizen find it difficult to navigate the streets in Port of Spain on foot, and so I can just imagine for a blind person. And as well, we're going to highlight this morning the issue of handicap parking. That too is an issue here, and we have two examples of that, how it's done in other countries, and then we have an example of how it's done in Trinidad. And we're going to show you that. Yesterday, I took my time to go down to a gas station right after peak trading there, and is the main perpetrator. We want to commend, however, Massey Stores, and I've seen Massey Stores have gone a step further, and we want to commend them for that by the designated
This is
as
Massey Stores in Starlight.
in Starlight.
Yeah.
I think they've done it in all the Massey Stores. Stands to reason they should. They've done it by Starlight too as well. They have big, bright blue spot right in front of the entrance of the supermarket for the disabled persons, and we thank them for that. And all the other institutions in Trinidad and Tobago who have been doing that and recognizing that there's a need for that, we thank you very much. But that gas station is a main culprit in anybody parking in that disabled spot. We'll show you what we're speaking about.
But not only there, there are a lot of business places that have these spots available, one or two, but don't regulate them or don't enforce the fact that
Don't enforce.
they are for disabled persons alone. And if I may, just to share a bit about ableism, that is a word that we use in the promo, and one that you may or may not be familiar with. So I just wanted to share a definition and some more information about ableism, which is defined as, or can be defined as, any statement or behavior directed at a disabled person that denigrates or assumes a lesser status for the person because of their disability. Or it can also mean social habits, practices, regulations, laws, and institutions that operate under the assumption that disabled people are inherently less capable overall, less valuable in society, and or should have less personal autonomy than is ordinarily granted to people of the same age. And some examples of ableism that we ourselves may be guilty of in terms of personal displays of ableism. One would be feeling instinctively uncomfortable around disabled people or anyone who seems strange, quote unquote, in ways that might be connected to a disability of some kind. And this manifests in many ways, and it can include being nervous, clumsy, and awkward around people in wheelchairs, being viscerally disgusted by people whose bodies appear to be very different or deformed, avoiding talking to disabled people in order to avoid some kind of feared embarrassment, and holding stereotypical views about disabled people in general or about certain subgroups of disabled people. So, for example, assuming that disabled people's personalities fit into just a few main categories, either sad and pitiful, cheerful and innocent, or bitter and complaining. Associating specific stereotypes with particular conditions. For example, people with Down syndrome are happy, friendly, and naive. Mentally ill people are unpredictable and dangerous, or autistic people are cold, tactless, and unknowable. Placing different disabilities in a hierarchy of severity or relative value. A prime example of this is the widely held belief, even among disabled people, that physical disability isn't so bad because at least there's nothing wrong with your mind. And the third point, resenting disabled people for advantages or privileges you think they have as a group. And this example applies to the disabled parking. This is one of the main flip sides in condescension and sentimentality towards disabled people. It's driven by a combination of petty everyday resentments and false, dark, and quasi-political convictions, such as disabled people get good parking spaces, discounts, and all kinds of other little unearned favors, or what we think are unearned. Unlike other minorities, everyone likes and supports disabled people. They aren't oppressed, they are coddled, and disabled people don't have to work to get government benefits for life. So that is just a kind of a brief summary of some of the the attitudes that we hold, and how that fits into the term ableism, which of course will be discussed in terms of one particular disability, which is blindness, this morning
And
with our guests.
yes, and we have to recognize Storm and Tom, or Anthony Tom, right here in this radio station.
Yep.
Um, most of you, if not don't know by now, Tom is blind,
Yes.
and he operates this system just like everybody else. Of course, he's given the tools by the company so that he can, be step on side by side with everyone else, all the operators who sit behind this desk and behind our controls, and entertain you and keep you informed. And Storm and Tom is blind, so we have to understand that. And we thank Tom reach home safe, and
All right.
we and we have to recognize that they are citizens, they are among us, they belong to us, and we have to respect that and cherish that, and especially if they want to work and they want to be part of the building a society, then we should be proud of that as well.
And allow them to contribute.
When we take this break, I ask any one of you who listen this morning, in your own living room, stand by your front door, inside, and close your eyes and walk to your kitchen without skipping a beat. Close your eyes and with no aid, and just walk to your own living room, I tried it, and let me tell you something. Ah, Lord, we have us on a table there. If I only bounce my foot and let it break. And that, listen, it is not an easy thing to do.
No.
And we could see. And so you can imagine a person who have to live with this every single day of their life. And then when, for instance, the gas station that I referenced earlier, I have spoken to the security there many times. And some of the security, I understand why too. They want to go back home to their family, as one said to me. And when you tell people about parking in a disabled parking spot, they get hostile and violent. Imagine that. What kind of country do we live in?
Well, some Gloria on Facebook says, Price Mart Movie Town has big, beautiful blue mark spots that people who are quote unquote just going in quickly for a couple items.
Right.
Those people use.
Yes.
These drivers seem sprightly and sighted and to be abusing those spots.
And,
So
and,
it happens all over.
and we're talking about from people who drive Tida straight up to Porsche, do it, And I was recording yesterday, and guess who pulled into the disabled parking spot driving what? When I spoke about that the other day, Shari told me that I discriminating, and some words she used, but the person was driving a Tida, a stereotyping.
Profiling.
Yes, profiling. Yes, but the person was driving a Tida. I'm not kidding. I say, wow, the first person, boy, and the two spots, mind you, the two spots next to that were empty,
Yep.
But this young man, now, in a sense, I don't blame him either. Because himself, he could claim he didn't see that yellow thing on the ground. Then what that gas station needs to do is put a post up with the internationally recognized symbol of the wheelchair in blue. So that even if they missed it on the ground, they can't say that they missed it. That's like a road sign.
Yeah, and there's nothing distinguishing that spot either from the others. The signage is yellow. So that doesn't indicate something different. So if they, as Massey does and as Price Mart does, just paint the whole spot blue.
But it happens all over the world, and it's a syndrome with normal people. I just go in there for a minute. It are no disabled people around here right now, and that's the justification. Leave the spot alone. I've seen police and all parking disabled parking spot. Leave the people's spot alone. It's just one. That's all they ask for. And we need to give them that. They're entitled to it. And as I said it to you again, when we return from the break, we're going to be hearing from Asha Alexander and Bhawani Prasad, who is no stranger to our Dependency. And we will take you through this step. Maybe at the end of this program, you might see things differently. And I use the word see intentionally. You might look at the disabled community differently, and don't pity them because they don't want that. They just want to be side by side, stepping with us and being contributors to Trinidad and Tobago. That's all they ask. So let's go to this quick break, and when we return, we will hear from Asha Alexander first, who has a very interesting story. Now imagine being able to see, and then you are taken to the hospital, and, and when you leave there, your sight is gone. We'll hear about that when we return right here on our Dependency. We'll be back.
Slavery, a terrible time in our history. The kidnapping, buying and selling of people for profit, the exploitation of another human being. It still exists today. It has a new name: human trafficking. Anyone can be a victim. There is forced labor, sexual exploitation, and domestic servitude. Human trafficking is a worldwide problem and an emerging concern for us here in Trinidad and Tobago. If you know of or suspect human trafficking activity, call the counter-trafficking hotline at 800-4CTU or 800-4288. Human trafficking is a crime. Identify it, report it, stop it. A message from the counter-trafficking unit of the Ministry of National Security.
The government of Trinidad and Tobago, through the National Task Force Against Trafficking in Persons, continues to develop and implement effective policies and procedures to prevent and suppress human trafficking. To date, the National Task Force has developed 2 national plans of action against the crime of trafficking in persons. Trinidad and Tobago adopts a 4-pronged approach in its response to human trafficking. 1. Effective identification of victims and witnesses. 2. Prevention of human trafficking. 3. Protection of victims and witnesses. And 4. Prosecution of suspected traffickers. In the Ministry of National Security, we established a specialized unit called the Counter-Trafficking Unit to lead and manage Trinidad and Tobago's response to human trafficking. The Counter-Trafficking Unit works closely with the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, the Immigration Division, and international law enforcement agencies to aggressively and proactively investigate and prosecute suspected human traffickers. Human trafficking is a serious crime. Rest assured, the government of Trinidad and Tobago and its agencies remain committed in the fight against human trafficking and will respond with immediate effect when the need arises.
We are the Counter-Trafficking Unit of the Ministry of National Security, Trinidad and Tobago, safeguarding human life.
Ion Dependency with Garth and Natasha.
Reality radio, at its best, where every life is a biography.
Sundays at 10 a.m. and exclusively on 95.5 FM.
And streamed live on the Ion Dependency Facebook page and YouTube channel.
Thank you for staying with us. This is Ion Dependency, and this morning we are talking about persons with disabilities, specifically persons who are blind and visually impaired. And we have a couple of guests with us this morning who are going to share their experiences about what it means and how it feels to be blind in Trinidad and Tobago.
So let's start with Asha. Asha, good morning. Asha? And Asha,
hi,
joining
good
us?
Morning, Garth and Natasha.
Morning.
Right. And
Hello?
Yes,
Yes,
morning.
we're hearing you.
And they both
Hi,
joining us.
good morning.
Right, and they both joining us via video call, and we thank you all very much. For Bhawani, can you hear us too? Good morning to you as well.
Good rainy Sunday morning to you and all the listeners.
All right, thank you. So Asha, let's get right into it, my dear. And you can tell us a bit. I give a hint of what happened to you, but tell us about you growing up and when did you become blind?
All right, good morning to you and our listening audience. Thank you for having us this morning. All right, so my story started, I was not born with any eye problems at all. right? I came from a family that didn't have anyone in, you know, any relatives with any eye problems. So it was really strange when this occurred. So I started to attend primary school at the age of 5, as most children do, and in that experience, the Lions Club came to visit in order to do eye screening at one time, and in the process of doing that, they saw something that appeared to be looking like cataract. We later found out it wasn't. However, in doing the test, they have the chart up on the wall and they have the letters and so on that you have to look at and see. At that time, of course, I now learning to read and write. And I don't know if they took that into consideration when I did not say the right letter or so. But they said that I couldn't see properly, and in the report they just gave me a paper to take home to my parents. So obediently I did, and my parents, being the loving parents that they are, wanting the best for their child, as most parents always do. They said, well, okay, let's take her to the doctor and see what could be done. I think the one mistake that they did make was that they didn't get a second opinion, because when we went to that doctor, he said that I needed immediate surgery. And so he did a referral letter for them to take me to the San Fernando General Hospital. And unfortunately for me, they did not follow the regular procedure, because they didn't join me in the clinic and do the normal stuff that one does when you go there. And they said that I needed to go directly to the ward. And so my parents now in shock, but doing what they think the doctor is supposed to be knowing what they're doing. So they sent me up to the ward, and apparently at that time they had just gotten the laser machine at the hospital, right? And I was the one that they had to try it out on. So so they did the operation on both of my eyes at the same time, which is not according to procedure. And seeing that the document was supposed to only be for one eye, they were supposed to only do it on the one eye that they saw the so-called cataract in, but they did it on both eyes at the same time, and they actually butchered my eyes. And to make matters even worse, they didn't even cover it. Normally when you do the eye surgery, they put a patch over your eye, and you would get medication ever so often, throughout the process of healing. But they didn't do that. They sent me after that with my eyes uncovered to the children's ward next to our window. And my eyes were uncovered. I was not getting any attention. I was supposed to be sent to the eye ward. And so no nurses were attending to me. And as a child, I'm in a strange place, so I looking out to see when my mommy and daddy come in. So I would stand by the window looking outside and looking down. I see the cars in the car park there, and I remember seeing them getting smaller and smaller and smaller until they disappeared. And that was the end of it for me with vision. I couldn't I didn't know what to do after that. And even when I wanted to go to the toilet and I was telling the nurse, she would say, well, walk now, because I was supposed to be seen according to them. But nobody wasn't, no doctors, nobody came to see about me. And my parents, when they came, it was too late. And they were just told that your child blind. Well, of course, my father wanted to run amok, but oh my gosh! But it was a really traumatic experience for us as a family, you know.
And
We
of course,
went
there was no redress. Your parents did not seek any redress from the hospital authorities. Was any complaint made or any kind of redress offered by the hospital?
Actually, that was one of the things that was the problem, because they did not go through the correct procedure. They have no documents to show that I was even at the hospital. You understand? So we had no documents to show. And of course, we were poor people. We don't have any money to pay no big time lawyer to fight no case. So nobody didn't want to go against the hospital. I mean, that's the government, you know.
Yeah.
My parents, however, did try to get corrective surgery done, and so they raised funds by doing barbecues and all these kind of things, and the goodness of people to contribute. So we got enough money to go to Canada to the Toronto Children's Hospital in Canada, and the doctors there were really shocked because they couldn't believe that doctors did that to my eyes. They said that they actually butchered my eyes. They couldn't even do an eye transplant. My father was willing to give his eyes to me, but they said the optic nerve that comes to the eye from the brain was damaged as well. All the nerves, everything was damaged. So there's nothing that they could have done to repair anything.
Wow. So what was it like after your visit to Toronto and you came back? I guess the plan was in terms of how your parents would, continue on, or the family would go on, is to try to help you to adapt to your new condition. So how difficult was that in terms of, your education and etc.?
Well, that, as you say, was really tough because I as a child, I felt at that time somehow or the other I had to try to be strong for my parents because I know it was really difficult. I know my mom was crying all the time because of it, and so I had to try to show them I could be okay. So I felt, children are resilient, eh?
Yes.
And I fell back into my regular routine, climbing trees and doing all the mischief that children normally do, you know. Because I was familiar with my home environment, I knew where everything was. I had to relearn it in a different way by touch and steps. I count the steps and I know how far things are. I use landmarks so I can know when I reach this drain or this bump. I'll know where to turn or where to go, and that kind of thing. So I was able to move around pretty well, but my parents never treated me any different, and they just always tried their best to help me. So what they did, they actually found the school for blind children in Santa Cruz where they enrolled me, and that's where I began my education as a blind person. So they not only were able to help me in terms of learning daily living skills. That's like how to be able to function, like dress myself and do, take care of myself and my surroundings, how to make up my bed and to do all these different things, I was able to get a basic education. And from there, they realized, well, okay, we could now integrate her out into the regular school system now, seeing that I could be able to handle myself. So I was able to go out into the regular primary school and get the education there. Of course, at a later age, so I would have been older. I would have been the oldest child in that class. So whereas a 8-year-old would be in standard 1 or 2 or somewhere thereabout, I would be a year older or two, in that class. I can't remember exactly, but yeah, when I did common entrance, I was 13 years old. Yeah, so do the math. I can't really remember right now, but yeah.
That's
So
okay.
that's how I went through. And from there on, I did my common entrance, and well, at that time, they didn't really used to place all the children. They had limited spaces, so I wasn't able to get in. And so I did the post primary exam, but after that I got into Holy Faith Convent, which was really a thing unheard of because you don't really go from post primary to one of these prestige schools, But I did so well. I did really well. I got distinctions and stuff, and so they sent me there. Thankfully, and I was able to get my education up till Form 3 because I didn't have any books. While going to school, it was really difficult getting the printed text and into Braille, and that was a real problem to me. So basically, I went through school just writing down what the teacher was saying, like taking points, and when I had homework to do, a child in the class would read, and I would do the questions and stuff like that and answer. And then after I would read back my answers to the teacher, and they were really helpful in that way. But when you get to a higher level, is a lot more work. So
Yeah.
and everybody is trying to focus on their own stuff. So it would be more difficult. So that's why I ended up leaving from school after the end of Form 3, and ended up going to work in URP. They allow, I ended up getting a little part-time because at that time I was, what, 18 years old,
In
and
URP.
huh?
In the in the
URP, you said?
in the office.
Yes, in the URP office, yes. So I
Oh,
started, I was
oh, oh.
answering phone and stuff like that.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
so that
because
was
I
basically,
couldn't see you with a waka in your hand. It just did make sense.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, and
although,
and then,
Imagine she sweeping the road.
what, pardon?
Or sweeping the
no,
road.
Oh, see,
actually,
Imagine she sweeping the road.
it, it's kind of funny because after the URP I went into CCC. That's where I didn't do the waka, but I was pulling out grass and things, you
Oh,
know.
and your time, hold on a second, Asha. If you're just joining us, you're listening to Dependency, and we are speaking with Asha Alexander right now, who is blind. She was not born blind, but she became blind after a visit to the hospital. And for someone to be in such jovial spirit, as you could hear it in her voice. You could hear she has, been able to deal with this issue. I would have been an angry person till I die, because knowing that I could have seen, and all of a sudden coming out of the hospital, my sight is gone, and because of a botched, procedure, it's
but I think
unfortunate though.
what
It's
worked for her
unfortunate.
was her age. I think being a child in that circumstance, as she said, children tend to be resilient, and it probably wasn't as much of a shock to her as it was for her parents to deal with. So she was able to adapt quickly and progress in her life.
Yes, somebody phone, Bhawani, if that's your speaker, could you take off your speaker in the meantime while we speak with Asha, because we hear the phone ringing in the background. We know you're a busy man too, so we'll get to you in a bit. So yes, folks, so that's what we're dealing with here this morning. So Asha, so you started work, and we want to thank the people at URP for at least giving you that break. How did that go?
Well, that was a real interesting experience, because the people were like, I was like, like, oh, she blind, everybody passing, and I was like, what's she doing here? But it was a learning experience, and eventually everybody was like, okay, so she normal, we could talk to she. Some people were like, well, we can't go too close and talk because we might get blind too.
What?
So that's why we have to
Wow.
really,
Say that
in this
again.
day
Say
and
that again,
age.
Asha. Say that again.
Well, what I was saying is that some people actually felt that, because they didn't know. It was really funny, but it was sad at the same time, because they feel like blindness is contagious,
Come now, man. Don't say that
and
now, man.
yeah, it has some people like that. I remember traveling a time in the maxi, and I asked the conductor to cross me over the road, and he actually touched my fingertips, and I had to go across the road like that because he didn't want to
Wow.
actually allow me to hold his hand. It's a lot of things. People really have a lot of stereotypes when it comes to disabled people and stuff. And some
Asha
people feel like,
Alexander. Asha Alexander.
yes, sir.
We have citizens in Trinidad and Tobago who think that if they touch you, they too will become blind. We
Well,
have people
it
walking
is
among us think
amazing.
like that.
Yes, it's amazing,
Yes.
but
Nah,
we
man.
do.
Don't say that.
Yes, this ableism thing is real. We are so
Yes.
afraid of what it means to have a disability of any kind. We are very, very afraid of it because we know how the society treats disabled people. That's why we're so afraid of it.
I don't know why I'm surprised, because there are people among us who feel substance abuse contagious too,
Well,
and treat me disabled. So I
exactly.
understand. I should understand. Yes. Okay. So
So after URP, you
wow.
you transitioned to CCC. What was that like?
Yes. Well, it was really like and everything is always like this. Like the first time they've been around a blind person, young people my age, a lot of them you never had any experience with any blind person before. So, it was something new, but it was really nice that I was able to build a lot of good relationships, and the soldiers and the sailors, and they were really accommodating, and they were really, so at the end of it all, it was like I was like the one that the teacher would say, wow, look, why you can't be like this one.
How,
And
you
it,
know who
it
was
would
the
encourage
you remember who was the program director at that time?
Mr. Peter Joseph,
Oh,
Colonel
Peter.
Peter at the time.
Well, he's brigadier
Yeah.
now, Peter Joseph. Right.
All right.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. So you actually, that's the foundation of the start of the Civilian Conservation Corps, basically.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So
And
go ahead.
right. So after, I didn't really stay very long because I was given an opportunity to continue my education, and of course my parents would be the ones to encourage me to do that. So I took the opportunity and I went to full-time school at the age of, let's see, 20 something. I was 23 or somewhere about 23 or 24, right? I went back to the CUC secondary school as in uniform full time, and that was like so amazing to me. But that's the only school in Trinidad at the time. I don't know if there's any other at the time that allowing people of any age to be able to come to school, right? So I was able to go there from Form 4, and at the end of my stay, I was able to get my 5 O-level passes. Thankfully, the teachers and them were really supportive. So I get my education. I ended up coming back to the Trinidad and Tobago Blind Welfare Association where I am now. But is a journey. It was a journey, and it is still ongoing because I am married to a visually impaired person, and I have two visually impaired children. So now I have to work with them now. It's a whole new a new era for me with that. So it's something that I have to go through learning every time.
Well, Asha, that's a nice beginning to this program this morning. Nice, take us through that journey, and you were very, very, on point and articulate. And we thank you very much for that. I'm sure the listener now understand where we're going this morning. If you're just joining us, you're listening to Our Dependency, of course, and we are speaking. You're hearing now from Miss Asha Alexander, who was not born blind, but became blind after a visit to the San Fernando General Hospital. And after this break, you'll be hearing from Bhawani Prasad. We'll keep Asha here with us because after hearing a bit about themselves, we'll hear what else can we do as a people, as a country, that can make life easier for the blind and differently able community. And we'll be discussing that. We want you to hear that. This is Blind Awareness Month. And this is the last day, actually, I think, of observance for this. And we have family members, and we have friends, and you yourselves, again, it can happen to you anytime. As a matter of fact, there's one of the examples we'll show you of a woman in the United States where she was at a restaurant and a botched mafia hit. She picked up a bullet and she's now in a wheelchair. And she had to become an advocate because you realize that that's one of the things that, able-bodied people don't seem to understand, that everybody deserves a place in our society. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, Asha, stay with us, right? And when we return, you're going to hear from Bhawani, and we'll continue the discussion right here on I-95.5 FM, live on the Dependency Facebook page and YouTube channel. We'll be back.
Ah, boy. Feel I'm gonna buy myself a senorita tonight.
Nah. You know you might be promoting slavery.
Slavery? What you talking about?
Hey, modern day slavery or human trafficking is just what some of these people just do. You know some of these women were tricked to come here? Some are held against their will, abused, and even beaten. Most times the girls don't even see any of the money that is paid for them. And every night, they just have to come out looking nice and sexy for somebody like you. Human trafficking is a serious problem and a serious crime. Persons who solicit commercial sex services may be contributing to human trafficking. A message from the Counter-Trafficking Unit of the Ministry of National Security.
Hello. Hi, this is Patricia Kent from HMP London. Can I speak to Miss Sheila, please?
This is Miss Sheila.
Hi, I've got an important call for you. Please hold the line. Mommy, it's Sherry.
Oh God, Sherry, we looking for you all the time. 3 weeks now. Where you going?
Mommy, I called in to tell you I get locked up. I had drugs in my luggage and I'm in England right now. In jail.
Oh God, Sherry, what? What you do? How you reach there? Oh God, how we gonna go?
Oh God, Mommy, don't cry. It'll be alright. Sorry.
Eye on Dependency. Reality radio at its best every Sunday on I 95.5 FM. Don't miss it.
Eye on Dependency with Garth and Natasha.
Reality radio at its best, where every life is a biography.
Sundays at 10 a.m. and exclusively on I 95.5 FM.
And streamed live on the Eye on Dependency Facebook page and YouTube channel.
For staying with us, this is Eye on Dependency. We're talking disability awareness, specifically blind awareness this morning with Bhawani and Asha Alexander, who you just heard her tell her story, which is an inspirational one to be true. She was not born blind, but she became blind as a result of a botched medical procedure. But as we mentioned earlier, she was a child at the time and was able to adapt. There's one question I wanted to ask her before we go on to Bhawani. Asha, did you make a deliberate choice to marry a blind person? Was that what was he thinking behind that? And I only ask because I know that there is, of course, we know there is ableism around, and we often see blind persons or persons with a disability being paired with or having romantic relationships with persons who are able-bodied. So what was that process like for you?
Actually, that was something that I did think about at the beginning, but I always trust in God for every decision that I make in my life, and I ask Him to choose the person for me, and and there was something that I told Him. I'll share it with you guys. I said, Lord, I remember in school I was reading this book about Shane, and I said, Lord, I said this. I said is a sign. I want you to show me. One of the signs is that my husband must be named Shane. And when I met my husband, I didn't even know that his name was Shane. That's his middle name. And it was only afterwards when we became, and that was just one of the things after when I first said, wow, among other things, that sounds funny, but really and truly, being blind was not an issue for me because I am totally blind and I am very independent. I do everything, cook, wash, clean, do everything. And he still has vision, and so he would be the one to take us around and do the things that so it wasn't like if he was totally blind, but even if he was, I would depend on whatever the Lord would guide me to do, so basically that's how.
So blind people fall in love too as well.
But of course
I know, Natasha. I'm just I know. Because I remember Well, somebody should have told Lingo that. Because I remember when Lingo took, I don't even remember this. Dana told it of Lingo, your Lingo problem. Porn was not accessible. Porn was not blind friendly or some kind of thing like that. Something, I don't even Lingo listened. I remember Dylan Tony interviewed him and Lingo had a serious problem with not being able to access
pornography.
so I never forget it. Just to lighten up the thing a bit.
I'm sure there's a market for that.
So let's
go to Bhawani.
Bhawani Prasad was born on April 17, 1958. He developed eye problems very early in his life and therefore attended the School for the Blind Children in Santa Cruz, Trinidad from September 1964 to December 1974. Since the integration program was at the pilot stage, the opportunity for him to attend secondary school was not possible. Immediately upon leaving school, he got into open employment as an announcer in a store using a PA system to encourage customers to make good the bargains available. I talked to you about that. How you know the thing was good, Lingo? Bhawani, you couldn't see it, but okay. By May 1975, he hosted his first radio program in celebration of Founders Day, which is a day recognizing work for the blind in Trinidad and Tobago on Radio Trinidad. By June 30th, he was a regular producer and presenter of a half-hour music program every Wednesday night. This lasted until December. Asha, can you mute your microphone, please? Asha, can you mute your mic? Thanks. This lasted until December 31st, 1978. During that said period, he was also involved in selling advertisements for the FM frequency radio 95.1 under the guidance of the late Sam Ghani. During the period 1985 to 1988, Bhawani also worked as a reporter for the Caribbean news agency Kana. He also hosted several programs on disability on various radio stations in Trinidad and Tobago, an activity he is still currently involved in. In addition, he has been involved on a few online radio stations owned and operated by blind and visually impaired persons. Joined the Trinidad and Tobago Blind Welfare Association as a handicraft trainee in 1978 and remained as an employee until 1993. He also served as a member of its council and on various subcommittees between 1984 and 1994, TNT Congress of the Blind 1976 to its end 10 years later, member of the Sunshine Group for Blind, ex-Pupils Association of the School for the Blind during the decade of the 19th, foundation member of the Trinidad and Tobago Chapter of Disabled Persons International in 1985, where he served thereafter as an executive member for the various periods. Foundation member of PAVI, Persons Associated with Visually Impairment, 1995, and served as organization in various capacities, including that of president for 2 consecutive terms as secretary and public relations officer. Foundation member and president of the Trinidad and Tobago Blind Cricket Association since inception in 2005 until the end of February 2010 when he resigned. First Secretary General of the West Indies Cricket Council for the Blind since inception in 2005 until 2014, and since then served as the administrator to present day. Secretary General of the World Blind Cricket Council 2007 until 2012, was returned to the position of Assistant Secretary General 2017, and in 2020 was elected to the position of the first Vice President to present day. He began attending annual general. I ain't go down here. Awards and special recognition. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is not the Prime Minister I'm reading here. This is Bhawani Prasad bio here. This is not a politician. This is not the Prime Minister, the President. This is Bhawani Prasad's bio. Secretary General of the World Blind Cricket Right. He began attending annual general meetings of the Caribbean Council for the Blind since 1979, and over the period represented all of the blindness organizations mentioned above at various times. Became an executive member of the Caribbean Council for the Blind in 1999, and to present, where he served as secretary for 2 terms and held various positions at the zone level. has been a member of the board and director of the Consortium of Disabled Organizations in Trinidad and Tobago and served as president for a while and currently the vice president of the said organization. He was a foundation member of the Combined Disabilities of Trinidad and Tobago. Awards and special recognition, plaque from the Caribbean Council of the Blind 2003, a special award from Gael Television, Trinidad, awarded by PAVI for advocacy in the year 2019, West Indies Cricket Council for the Blind for service and commitment in 2010, Trinidad and Tobago Blind Cricket Association for service and commitment, the Disability Affairs Unit of the Ministry of the People and Social Development for advocacy in celebration of International Day of Persons with Disabilities 2010. In 2021, he received the Hummingbird Gold National Award for years of service to the blind and visually impaired community, as well as the community of persons with disabilities. We could take a break
some
now.
water. Ladies and gentlemen, Bhawani Prasad.
Good morning, good people. That was a mouthful. That was a mouthful.
That's a son of the soil, Trinidad and Tobago, blind, but he has contributed, as you can hear, in many ways, so we don't even have to speak to him anymore. All right, so thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time, Bhawani. Bhawani, hey, welcome to Dependency, Bhawani, once again. I remember we featured Bhawani, the Paho feature at our TV series, but Bhawani, I want to say congratulations on all you have contributed to Trinidad and Tobago as a blind person. And
thank you very much.
You know,
it's good to shake hands with Natasha again. I remember when she was at the Ministry of Sports. I held her hand and she's not.
Yes, of course. That's why I first knew Bhawani, as he had a blind cricket, and he was a driving force behind, getting recognition for that sport.
But how was it? How was it difficult, Bhawani, or was it easy for you to convince people that blind people can play cricket as well?
I think it was midway. It was mixed because people wanted to know how would they manage, what is required, etc., etc. But again, if you have the personality that will sell something, you could sell something, right?
Right, because I mean, you announced for a store asking people to come and buy stuff, and you encourage people to come in the store and buy stuff. So you have that personality. But take us back a bit though. You said you were born blind, were you?
Well, when I was born, they say something was growing over the eye. So I was a baby when they treated it and perhaps overdosed it. Or those in 1958, 1959, it was, not as it is now that you could diagnose problems very quickly and very easily. So whatever they did, when I was bad, and it just pulled the other eye later on in life.
Okay. Now, but how easy was it for you going to school?
It was not difficult because you unlike Asha's story, you were not sighted or fully sighted and then developed eye problems. You developed it from a baby. So the adjustment was not that bad. So you went straight into school for blind children at the age of between 5 and 6, and then you piece yourself from there.
Was it a major adjustment for your family, and how did they raise you as a blind child with sighted parents with a blind child?
Well, interestingly enough, my father passed away when I was 2.5 years old. So it was left up to my mother and the rest of the brothers and sisters. We were 9 brothers and sisters in all, and my mother managed to cope well under the circumstances because I had a sister with a hole in the heart as well. So it was not just alone with a challenge, But she managed and she brought her children up to be who we are today. None of us have gone into drugs or any kind of, that kind of field. But all of us could give a good account of ourselves.
So, based on your extensive profile now, Bhawani, and you've done a lot of advocacy, a lot of work in the field in terms of raising awareness about disabilities, particularly blindness. Where do you think we are in Trinidad and Tobago now in 2023? Are we in a better position? What needs to change? How can we improve the way that we treat with persons with disabilities?
When I first started to knock the pavements of Port of Spain, it was totally different, which was over 40 years ago, almost 50 years. We have seen some changes, slowly but surely, some changes have come about. We still have a big attitudinal problem, and that is the biggest problem. We have seen the advancement made in technology and stuff like that, but the attitudinal problem by some still exists. The stereotyping, the feeling that if I shake a blind man hand, I'll get blind. That still exists in some
I still can't get
quarters.
over that one.
But slowly changing, and because we now live in a global village where everything is being seen by other people around the world. In the days of old, when they were broadcasting cricket on TV, you had to wait 2 weeks after the film come from England to see the second test while the third test going on.
Yes.
Yes.
But today we get it live and direct, and because we have all these advances now, so it's a lot different. Attitude, as I said, things are changing slowly but surely, but we too have to contribute to that change because we have to provide our image to such that we are not, recipients of handouts and so on. We have changed from the charity model to the rights model, and that is important. We ourselves need to accept.
No, Bhawani, before I ask you and Natasha you and Asha to outline some stuff for us here, could you explain? We always hear you speaking about blind cricket, but could you explain how blind cricket is played really?
Okay.
Do you all have spin bowlers and fast bowlers and
Yes.
Yes,
and all these things and wicket keepers too?
Yes.
And all of that.
All right.
Explain this for me, please.
Let me go through the formality. One, many of the rules which imply to conventional cricket also imply to blind cricket. However, there are some different dimensions. The bowling is strictly on the arm, so you can't pelt a ball up in the air.
Right.
Two, the sight category is dependent on your level of vision at the time. You go to your ophthalmologist and have your eyes tested based on the forms that have been created. A B1 is someone who's totally blind, no vision at all.
Right.
A B2 is someone with limited vision, but they still need assistance to get around. And a B3 is those with a little more vision who are more independent in terms of navigating their way around. The ball itself has beads. There is more verbal communication in blind cricket. For example, when the bowler is ready to deliver, he says, "Batsman, ready?" And then up on the point of delivery, he says, "Play." As I said, the bowling is on the arm. So the most effective sweep for a batsman is, of course, the sweep. That's the most effective shot. That's how it should read. And basically, now the fielders. One interesting thing about blind cricket, everybody has to play their part. Let's look at a T20. In the same way, you have bowlers bowling a maximum of 4 overs. In the case of the B1s, who are the totally blind, they must bowl 40% of the over rate. So that means in a T20 competition match, they will bowl at least 8 overs amongst themselves. The team is made up of 4 B1s, 3 B2s, and 4 B3s.
Okay, so let me get this. Before just now, stick up in. So let me get this. So the people who feeling have a little more vision, would it be?
No. It's the same fielders who bat in and who bowl it.
Okay.
But because of your sight category,
right,
you will be required to do more or less.
So,
right?
Because I'm trying to picture, so if somebody hits a ball and it goes in the air, the beats, you will still be hearing it?
You may, depending on how keen your sense of hearing is.
Okay.
Back in 2010, a B1 player took a catch in Barbados to dismiss a Barbadian. And I mean, you have some of these activities on because people have to focus on what is on the field. They don't have to study the crowd, the bacchanal that is outside. They have to focus on what they're doing on the field, right? And that's why the concentration must be so adapt that they need to focus.
Yep.
Right?
And I must say that Trinidad and Tobago was a champion in blind cricket for many years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Jamaica was the overall champion, but we always second in position for a number of years.
Right.
We produced some very good batters and bowlers and fielders as well.
If you're just joining us, you're listening to Dependency, and we are speaking with Asha Alexander And Bhawani Prasad, Asha was not born blind, but she became blind after a visit to San Fernando General Hospital and a botched operation. And of course, Bhawani almost suffered the same fate when you heard him explain what happened, because back then the technology was lacking. But we observing Blind Awareness Month, and of course later on in the program we pay attention to the disabled community as well and highlight some indiscretions of able-bodied people parking in handicapped parking spots. But Asha, Bhawani was finished, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
right.
yeah, asked him
Okay.
about the
Well,
blind cricket. So
right. So thanks for that explanation on blind cricket, Bhawani. I
Well,
really.
I just want to encourage anybody listening to this program, if you're losing sight or lost sight, that we are here to help you, whether it be PAVI, whether it be Blind Cricket Association, because you can still play cricket. A lot of
Right.
us grew up with cricket on the radio. And this is how we knew where slip and find leg and thing is. Not like the Chinese man who want to know if that woman is indisposed or, that kind of stuff. But that's for another topic.
That's another. Right. So let me come back to Asha a minute. Asha, one of your concerns is we're going to talk to you about integration now, and for people with multiple disabilities and all of that. What are some of the suggestions you would have? What are your concerns about integration, and what are some of the suggestions?
All right. Well, that's a very wide topic, but basically, what I think is that as much as possible, we should try to give a disabled person all the opportunities to be as normal as possible, like send them out to regular schools and so on. But we must put things in place. For example, they must be able to get their text in braille or in the suitable format, whether it's large print or whatever. They must have the devices available because not everybody is able to afford these things, right? They are very expensive. So we looking for that, as well as these teacher support, because when as a disabled person you go into the regular system, you may need a little more attention that the teacher mightn't have time for. Some teachers will be able to do it at certain times, but not all the time. So we need these student aids, and they keep saying that they don't have enough, and people out there who are trained and waiting to come in into the system to help to do that kind of thing, and they're still not getting through. So I don't know, the government needs to ensure these things.
Is there a
let me just
specific,
jump in.
just to ask a question about that, in terms of the student aids, where do they get their training, and how is that, what is that process like in terms of getting into that field specifically? Do you have to go through teacher training college as normal, or?
Yes, I think that they go through the regular teaching service, but they specialize, just like with the doctors, they have
Yes.
specialties. Yes, you study to be a doctor, but you specialize in a particular field. So this is what I think they do with the
Okay.
teacher training.
Now, with respect to you also spoke about unemployed blind persons. How many, in your estimation? And we'll get Bhawani to add to this in a moment. But blind persons unemployed. How large is that community?
Well, actually, there are a lot of persons. I don't know the number because I'm not privy to all these stats, right? But there are a lot of young people who have achieved really good qualifications, and they're at home and they're still awaiting employment, seeking employment and not getting it. I experienced that when I had finished school. I went to different places looking for employment, and when they saw the qualification, they said, "Come in." And when I went in and they saw that I was blind, they said, "No, the job is taken," because they didn't want to have to deal with the fact that a blind person will be working in the company. So this is where I think the association needs to play a bigger part. They need to play a bigger part in terms of preparing, like being a support for the person, to the company as well, putting in the needed software and stuff to be able to accomplish the same thing that a sighted person could do. It's just that we need the extra support in terms of the technical and that kind of thing.
Yes, that is an important point in terms of employers need wanting and understanding the importance of making the workplace accessible to all, and not valuing the strength and the skills that disabled people may have, because it may cost a little bit for you to retrofit your office for someone who's in a wheelchair, for example, and as you mentioned, to have the software on the machines for a blind person or a deaf person to use them. So I think what you're saying is that it has to start at the level of the company, the organization, the institution, to be willing to be truly accessible to all, and to provide that opportunity for employment for persons who are blind, visually impaired, or otherwise disabled.
And I've seen a marked improvement though in accessibility to buildings in this country though. I've seen a lot of people now have
ramps,
including wheelchair ramps and so on, and they have braille on the elevators, stuff, and a lot of people, companies, but we could always improve on these things. And what about navigating your way through the streets? Asha, let's deal with that.
My goodness. I'm so happy you brought up that, because that is something that I believe that the government really needs to pay more attention to. I mean, look, the blind welfare in San Fernando is located on Coffee Street, and you can't walk a good 10 feet before you bump into a sign or a lamppost on the pavement, in the middle of the pavement. If you, as a blind person, not aware of it beforehand, you could damage other parts of your body. The pavements are so deplorable because they're broken. The steps high and low. It have too many obstacles. I mean, you're already trying to be brave to go out there and be independent, and when you have to face these things, it is really, really difficult. Like, they have the cars and all. People would just park their cars on the pavement into the road, and you encounter so many difficulties. Sometimes I remember a time I actually fall into a manhole because it didn't have no manhole cover.
Oh my
And
God.
thankfully it didn't have any water. The rain didn't fall. Otherwise I might have I might have drowned.
Wow.
I mean, I can laugh at it now, but seriously, it's a lot of things. It's a lot of things that we could do instead of having these steps. They could probably think about putting the little ramps and so on. You
Yes.
know,
And
um,
even
and
the
and and
curbs, make the curbs a little more accessible, because some of those high curbs really frustrate people, and you could trip over these high curbs. And I know the reason probably is because of the drainage, but they're just not accessible most times.
Yes, so it is really difficult as a blind person. People look at blind people and they say, well, them could handle this stuff because it's just their eyes, they can't see. But really and truly, like Garth was saying earlier, if you close your eyes and you walk in your familiar environment, like your living room, it is a scary thing, much less for when you go in an unfamiliar place with so many other obstacles in your path. Is really, really difficult. So I think that the government could do a lot more in terms of fixing the infrastructure, putting things in place.
I want to concur with you where that is concerned, walking among, because I mean, as a
Absolutely.
sighted person, it's really challenging sometimes.
Yep.
Even when I decide to go out for a jog, it's really difficult, and I've taken pictures of manhole covers, even concrete ones, disappearing. So,
But before we move off this topic, Asha or Bhawani, you could jump in if you need to. What is some of the advice that you would give for sighted persons who encounter a blind person trying to get around? What are the ways that we can help? Because I know From my experience with Floyd Morris, who was my classmate at UE Mona, and he's tremendous person. He actually taught me. He was the one who taught me how I should walk with a blind person, which arm they need to hold, etc. So these tell us some of these things that how sighted persons can assist, and how should we engage with blind persons that we may encounter.
The first
Well,
thing.
first, okay, Val, go ahead.
Yeah, Bhawani, go ahead.
All right. The first thing you have to do is to watch where you're walking and mind your business. Because
right.
too many people trip over our canes. Then it gets broken. And when it gets broken, now, okay, I just get blind, right? But I want to develop my courage to go out so I could go to church, I could go wherever I need to go.
Yes.
But on my first trip outside, the first thing I encounter is somebody walking over my cane and then making all kinds of silly remarks. And perhaps they might fall in the process, but I cannot be blamed for that because you're not watching where you're going.
Yes.
You understand? So that is the first thing that we need. Don't say, oh gosh, and get hysterical over the situation. If you see the blind person is using the edge of the pavement, journey to the other side.
Yep.
Where you'll be able to comfortable. That's
Get out
one.
of the way. Yes.
Yeah, that's one. Asha, you wanted to add?
Yes, I want to also say too, you see, people attitude, I mean, really and truly, you can't really force people to be civilized there. The most you can do is just appeal to them. But we want to say that blind people can hear, thankfully, most of them can hear. And it would be
Yes.
nice if you politely go to them and say, excuse me, would you like assistance and to cross the road or whatever, and they would either accept or not. And if they do accept, they would hold your elbow just over your elbow, right? Because that is how they normally get we get guidance, right? So they
Yes.
would be holding the cane most of the time in their right hand because most people are right-handed. So all right, so you're holding the cane and on one hand and in the other hand, and they would guide you across the road. You don't have to lift them up because some people feel they see and they want to actually hold you. They come and they grab you and they want to lift you up and carry you too, you know.
Yes.
or some of them will put a hand on your shoulder and kind of push you or guide you in the way that you're supposed to go. No, it doesn't work like that. So we want to say that you need to hold the person just over the elbow and lead them. I mean, the blind person have to lead. Hold on to the sighted person's elbow,
Elbow.
right? Just
Yes. So that you could
right.
determine whether they're going up, down, or that's easier than actually holding your hand. So
Yes.
you're more as acting as a guide rather than anything else.
Yes, and so in that way, remember, below the elbow, your hands always moving and so on. But with over the elbow, you're feeling the whole body, so you know when the body is turning, or if
Yes.
you're moving up or down. You know, so that's why it is much easier that way.
Now, what about
Okay, yes.
transport? Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Asha, go ahead.
I was just going to give an experience that I had recently where I was a passenger in a vehicle and the driver just stepped out for a moment and this person just come up to me and it was like, hello, hello, hello. No, I don't know who they're talking to.
Right.
And so I didn't answer. But if they say, excuse me, you in the car or something like that, I would have known it's me. They're actually trying to get my attention.
Right.
And when the driver came back, the woman told him how she's so disrespectful. I don't know who she was talking to, so I couldn't respond. And it's the same way when you're walking on the road and people, how could we know that is us that you're referring to? If you probably touch or indicate in some way, like if it, that we'll know that is us you're speaking to. Otherwise, we wouldn't.
So how? Now this is. I'm glad you raised this, and you could understand. For some people, they don't want to be politically incorrect and calling it by saying blind man, listener.
Yes.
So how should we address you all?
Ma'am, sir, just like anybody else.
Anybody else? Excuse ma'am, excuse sir. I see you're aiming to cross the road. Can I help you?
Right.
or are you going left or are you going right? You know,
Now let's speak
uh,
about transport now. Before we go to the normal transport that they had for blind people, what about taking a taxi or maxi taxi, public transport? How easy it is for you all, and
it
how many good drivers
again.
do we have out there who actually insist that they will transport someone who is blind?
Again, it depends on the individuals and the attitudes. Because, for example, I travel extensively, and I have been traveling extensively independently. Now, a day I go on the Sawat, and this is a real story. I gone on the San Juan taxi stand to get a taxi from Port of Spain to go to Sawa. And you know where the line is, right at the corner of Charlotte Street and Independence Square there.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I know I on the taxi stand. So I asked the driver, I said, drive, I'm going crazy, please. No, I'm not going. I said, okay, but you on the taxi stand? Well, don't tell me so and so and so and so. And he started cut.
Wow.
What I did with him, thank God the fare was cheap in those days. I took the car behind it, which was empty. I gave the driver the $10 for the whole car. And I showed him that I am begging a drop. I'm paying
Correct.
for the ride. You understand?
Yeah.
So when we was leaving now, he said, "Boy, you're lucky. You're lucky. You get a passenger to pay for the whole car." I said, "Well, that was your fault." You understand? So some people still have an attitude and a problem. They feel if you take up a blind person, they gotta come, lift up the blind person, put them out the maxi, all kinds of. So we still have. This is why attitude continues to be a big bugbear. What I want to recommend and suggest is that anybody applying for a badge to drive a maxi must not be geographically challenged. That is to say that they must not know where they're going. Because if, for example, you become a tourist and the tourist say, I am going to Shagwanas, and you don't know where Shagwanas is, or you're not passing that route or whatever, then you're challenged in your own way. And therefore, any person who's getting a maxi or a taxi badge must know the geography in which they're supposed to work or they are assigned to work based on what you have.
No, and Asha, what about your experience in traveling with the public?
Well, it's most of the time people will look at me and they say, "You plain, you blind, you could see," because
Wow.
apparently people have they feel that when you're blind, you're supposed to look a certain way and you're supposed to be a certain way, and
Yeah.
so they always have this tendency to think, "Well, you could," and pretending so that they don't want to help me. So I always kind of end up in a situation like that. you know um I just wanted to say too that people, like if you're traveling in a taxi as a blind person alone, right? It would be nice if the person put your hand on the door so that we could have an idea to gauge, so we know well if where you have to go. That's a good idea. They could learn to do that. Maybe they could incorporate that partly when you're really training to be or to applying for a taxi badge or a maxi badge, so that they could be able to deal with a disabled or yeah, disabled person, traveling and
Yeah.
all of that. I think
Agreed.
we really need to, yeah, this awareness.
No, I agree. That's a good idea too. And even for able-bodied or sighted people, just to understand that, okay, if you pick somebody up in a car and you're dropping them somewhere, don't drop them by the high pavement if they're in if they have to use a cane. Don't drop them on one side and they're on the other side of the car and they're opening the door to traffic. Those kind of things. Because I remember the story we heard from a blind lady who said she was in a maxi and the driver dropped her off far away from where she was supposed to go. So
From
she
the
was
point
literally
of
dropped off in the middle of nowhere.
yeah.
That kind of awareness just to be helpful,
In fact,
and
let me
to
just
really
drop
assist.
one more example for you, Natasha.
Yeah.
And that is that, for example, my wife, who was physically challenged, she had to hold the little thing at the top of the car to fit herself properly.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, don't hold that, don't hold that. If you break it off, who go pay for it?
Oh gosh.
Yeah, and these are the kind of attitudes that you face. And then when if you're going for your license, well, that's another story by itself because I could share that with you if we have the time.
Yes, please.
License?
Yes.
Yeah, not me.
Oh.
You got frightened.
I want to know.
I mean, when I got the license, I used to go licensing with my late wife. And,
right.
Well, where you come for your license? Come to make sure everything go right.
When you say license, I mean to drive. I want to know if we miss something here.
No, but as we head into this conversation about the disabled parking, tell us about that experience that you had.
All right. Disabled parking is right now is a piecemeal approach. People do it because they see it's happening. You see, a lot of these things that we need to put in place depends on legislation. And if we don't have the legislation, there are those who will be kind enough to facilitate, and we thank them for that. But then there are those who would say, well, why allow us around all the house? You understand?
Yep.
But if legislation is passed to ensure a level playing field in all aspects of life, then people will begin to respect and understand that there is a consequence for not obeying the laws.
Yes.
Yeah.
Making laws is one thing, but implementing them is another, and that is where we have the problem in Trinidad and Tobago.
No. Before we go to this break, the transport for your community, how is that going?
Okay. Two things. Once upon a time, many of us used before the 80s. Many of us used normal public transport. We were allowed for the PTSC to go in the front of the line at all times. Later on in life, we had Blind Welfare in Port of Spain. They had their own transport that commuted people from San Grande to Port of Spain. And at this time, I want to say condolence to the driver who passed away recently.
Yeah.
And his funeral was on Friday. I was there. And then we had the El Damo service, which was brought in focus in 2012 and lasted up to 5-6 years. And then they allowed the buses to deteriorate, so that service is now dropped. So now everybody has to fend them for themselves using public transport once again. And again, it depends on who you are and the attitude of people that you would or would not get through. Thank God, my days for traveling are more or less over. I don't travel much as I used to long time. But the much and the little I do, I have good response. Again, it's your personality too. It's your personality too. So
no.
So you would advocate for a return of that state runs to yes.
Now, I would advocate for it to a point now because it makes no sense, and this is where I have a problem. Because right now we have a PTSC bus running from Port of Spain to Grande Return. If that PTSC bus does not come for 2 days, that person will have to remain home. This is why the rehabilitation adjustment to blindness program is crucially important and must go hand in hand to the special pickups, because if the bus don't come, then you can't get to work and you could lose income because of that.
Yeah.
You can't get around. You can't go and look for the lady on the side. Sorry, I didn't mean that.
You can't live an independent life.
I just put that in to chuckle you guys.
Yeah, yes. I know. Yeah, but you better be careful. But I understand what you're saying, and as well, which that was that a charitable thing, or was it run by a ministry, the El Damo?
Well, it was charitable to the point that we didn't have to pay. The persons who used the service didn't have to pay for it, but it was paid for by the Ministry of Social Development and Services.
Okay.
The PTSC.
And but why was it stopped? Do you know?
Well, I think Asha, a lot of the buses were allowed to deteriorate.
But I'm happy that you raised the El Damo service, because I think it is a essential service, honestly, because not all it is traveling is a very costly thing, right? As a blind or disabled person, the cost of living is much higher than a regular person, because whereas when you go into somewhere, you would have to, like, most of the time I hire a taxi, because I'm not going to stand up in no road for car to be passing me up and down and I stay in there and reaching late to where I have to go.
Right.
right?
Right.
Especially when it is rainy and knowing the crime situation, it is very difficult, especially if you have to go out in the evening time or anything like that. So I'm thinking, I really would like if the government would restart the Eldamo service in order, at least if for important appointment. I mean, you wouldn't be able to get it all the time, but at least what about disabled persons who cannot travel on their own and they don't have anybody that they could go with, that they could call the service and be able to go to their appointments, let's say at the hospital or
Yes.
wheresoever.
Mm-mm. Think of it this way: a blind person might still be able to live as an independent person because he could take his cane or her cane and move about. What about the person in wheelchair who living in
Yes.
some back alley road that they can't, to come out is a stress one, and two, to get a transport is another stress because nobody gonna stop with their car to pick you up. Our transport system in Trinidad and some in Guyana are much different from those in other territories of the region. In other territories, one man pay for the whole car. In Trinidad and Tobago, you can pick up 4 people in a car, or if you have a 7-seater, you pick up 7 people. So your transportation mode is a little different. But if you imagine you going to San Fernando from Chaguanas and you have to board one of these 7-seaters and your wheelchair have to fit and there is no space in the back, and in the car there is no space because the driver put 10 bucks so he could bang out when he ready. All of
Hmm.
these things. All of these things.
No.
And PTSC has spoken a lot about bringing buses that will have spaces for wheelchairs. But I can't say I see them because I never see them. But
Right.
I'm not aware if any
Yeah.
of those buses exist in Trinidad.
Yes.
We
And
talk about
We
them.
talk about that already, the kneeling
the
buses.
kneeling buses and also the buses that the fitted with
The ramp
the
goes right
the
down.
ramp
The
the
ramp,
ramp to
yes.
bring up the wheelchair.
Of
And
course.
it's I mean, we've seen it. I've seen it around the world. And wherever Natasha and I went, that is a priority. And a bus driver dare not pass.
You are using it in London.
But
Yes.
a bus driver dare not pass a blind person on the road.
No.
That bus driver could lose his job, and that's how serious they take it. My sister, she's disabled. She's in a wheelchair and in Canada, and anytime she has to go anywhere, that
You call the
same
service.
the equivalent to the Eldamo service. She call them and they come and pick her up at home, take her to the supermarket, and with others, and they drop them back home.
Yeah.
I mean, but that is something that has to be carved in stone. It cannot be put in place by one government and then removed by the next one, or one minister and removed by the
Exactly.
next
But
one.
as you say that, is there a
And
policy? There is a policy for persons with disabilities, isn't there?
Well, they have started to rewrite the national policy. The first policy was done in early 2000s, and then in 2019 they did a rewrite, and they still have it comes a white paper, a green paper. I can't see the color of the paper, so we're still waiting for finalization of that.
Yeah.
As far as the national policy goes, it is there in print, but it's not. You see, if you don't have the required teeth to pull it forward, or the required support, whether it be financial and or otherwise, to make it happen, it will never happen.
Folks, if you're just joining us, you're listening to Dependency, and we've had a very great conversation with two blind persons in our community, Asha Alexander and Bhawani Prasad. After this break, Shortman, we're going to take a break. After this break, when we come out, we're going to show you what we would like, where we would like to see Trinidad and Tobago in the near future, and how seriously to take this. So we're going to show you 2 videos. And those of you listening, we will, of course, you will hear the dialogue of how serious the USA, Canada, and compare to what I saw yesterday at the gas station by Peaks there. I took a short video, and I want to show you the difference. And mind you, it's not unique to us, because there are a number of people around the world feel that because they're able-bodied, they will never become disabled. That is so wrong. It can happen at any time, as you would see from one of the persons in this video here that we're going to show you when we come back after this break. All right, so Asha, Bhawani, stay right there with us, you two people, and you loyal listeners and followers on Independency and Facebook. We want to thank you so much for your comments and same with Hazel Thompson. Hi, good morning. Senator Hazel Thompson, she's here with us too. Thank you very much for joining us. All right, so we'll take a break and we'll be back and we'll share some of your comments with you all and take some of your calls as well. We'll be back.
Hello? Hello, Mr. Dobson here from HMP London. Can I speak to Mr. James, please?
This is Mr. James speaking.
Thank you. Can you hold the line? I have a call coming through to you, sir.
Sure.
Hello, Daddy.
Hello, yes, Brian?
Daddy, I'm just calling to tell you that look up in the UK for drug trafficking.
Oh, yeah? You lock up? And you tell me I was going to Tobago? And I tell you about them boy I was liming with? Well, all right. Don't drop the soap. Cheerio.
Eye on Dependency. Reality radio at its best every Sunday on I 95.5 FM. Miss it.
Go, sona. I come in. And don't give me no attitude there.
You have Shiana manners, boy. I wish I had your touch, boy.
You have to groom them. First, you have to target them. Scope them out. See if they have low self-esteem. Family problems, you know? Then you move in and gain the trust.
I like your glasses.
After that, you feel a need. Some of them like nice things like fancy phones, hairdos, clothes, food. It have ones who only looking for somebody to care and listen to their problems. You feel me? What's important though, you have to isolate them from the people. Let them believe it's all about you and them.
I care about you.
Then you get through.
Nice.
Look one right here. Try thing now.
A message from the counter-trafficking unit of the Ministry of National Security.
Eye on Dependency with Garth and Natasha.
Reality radio at its best, where every life is a biography.
Sundays at 10 a.m. and exclusively on I 95.5 FM.
And streamed live on the Eye on Dependency Facebook page and YouTube channel.
Well, thank you very much for staying with us. And Caesar Thompson, ma'am, you got kind of double whammy this morning, right? Because we read your comment about the last promo that we played from this counter-trafficking unit about grooming. But I hope you, as you said, you were heartened by the response of the Deputy Director of the counter-trafficking unit about explaining this promo, this PSA on grooming. So I hope we could see the other side of it. And of course, we get your message about the persons living with disabilities. But Natasha, you wanted to share something about that?
Yes, it is. I mean, disability language is we always make an effort to be in compliance and not to be politically incorrect, right? So when you say, for example, normal person, the correct term in this context of this conversation would be able-bodied, not normal, right? But to my understanding, it is perfectly fine to use the word disabled, disability, or people with disabilities when you are speaking about disability issues. Referring to someone as a disabled person is not offensive, in my view. And not just my view, but globally, I would think. I mean, there are obviously some terms that are unacceptable. You don't call people retarded anymore. You don't, or you shouldn't say that people are bipolar or they're crazy, because that is,
Or call somebody a midget.
Or call somebody a midget. But you saying somebody is disabled, it's a factual statement. And it's not meant to be. But you
found something there to share, so could you share it quickly before we run out of time?
Yes. Sure. So Forbes magazine has an article about the do's and don'ts about disability language. So I'll just share the first couple paragraphs of this article. So they say, what is the right way to refer to someone in a wheelchair, or someone who can't see or see well, or a person who can't hear or hear well, someone who doesn't speak, who has noticeable trouble understanding things, someone who's sick a lot or always in pain, or just seems strange or quote-unquote off in some undefinable way. The contentious debate never seems to end over what are the right and wrong words and phrases to use to discuss anything to do with disabilities and disabled persons. And of course, we will get the comments of our guests this morning on this topic, since it was just raised. The question resists all attempts to forge broad consensus. Disabled people, their families, friends, their allies and casual acquaintances, their antagonists can't agree on which words strike the right balance between accuracy, clarity, realism, and positivity. Some of us hammer away at words we found outdated and offensive. Others look around confused, wondering when the disability words they once learned as progressive suddenly became not only passé, but provocative. Some try to use language to reshape the entire concept of disability or redefine it out of existence somehow. Some use words to unify the diverse disability community, while others strive for specificity and even finer distinctions between different disabilities and communities. And some of the points that they raise in this article, I'll just go through them quickly. One is to recognize obviously insulting terms and stop using or tolerated them. So words like idiot, imbecile, moron, and retarded, obviously for developmentally disabled or intellectually disabled. Deaf and dumb for deaf and non-speaking or non-verbal. Crazy, nut, loony, insane for mentally ill or mentally disabled. Cripple, gimp for physically disabled or just disabled. These are all terms which should never be used in conversation, and there would be little loss in communication if we stopped using them. The second one is to aim to be factual, descriptive, and simple, not condescending, sentimental, or awkward. The main alternative to saying terms like, or they say terms like differently abled, physically or mentally challenged, exceptional, and special needs are generally well intended, at least on the surface, but they are so obviously an effort to be kind or nice or positive and cheerleading that the effect on actual disabled people can be sentimental and condescending. It's also an understandable but ultimately wrong-headed effort to promote equality by not elevating disabled people, but in a sense trying to deny the reality of disability as a meaningful concept or experience. As with other marginalized groups, we should know by now that refusing to acknowledge or talk about disability as a real experience doesn't make life better for disabled people.
All right. Thank you very much for sharing that. Ma'am Thompson-Aye, I hope you understand that part of it as well. We understand your consternation about using the words and how and when we should use them. And
but do our guests have any thoughts on this in particular?
Before we go to them, though, we run out of time before we show these. So after we show these, we'll get and then Lingo is holding on to speak with us too as well.
Okay.
So but Shortman, let's go to video A first. Let's and this is in the USA, disabled parking. I'll just leave it at that. Let's show it.
Beware, law enforcement will be watching closely. Just to put it all in perspective, the Travis County Constable Precinct in downtown Austin, they'll have 23 officers and 50 sworn volunteers looking for people parking illegally in handicap spaces. And keep in mind, it's a $500 fine. KXAN's Josh Hinkle has our top story.
It's not okay to be parking in handicap spots.
On busy shopping weekends, warnings are not enough for some drivers.
$500 fine for parking in a handicap spot illegally.
Senior Deputy Lawrence Caldwell with the Travis County Constable District 5 says many still ignore the rules, or maybe they aren't aware.
Hey, I can pull in real quick, go run and grab some school supplies for the kids.
You have to have a disabled plate or placard, and the person it's registered to must be either driving or riding in the car when you pull into a handicap space.
You can't be using grandma's placard to buy groceries for.
Caldwell has heard all the excuses.
It's close, it's not a big deal, no one's gonna mind. But people do mind.
He says for every 25 regular spaces, a parking lot only has to have one handicap spot.
so people like yourself can have plenty of spaces to park in.
There's very few spaces available.
I've been issuing a citation and had people come up and shake my hand right in front of the violator while I was sitting there writing the citation and say thank you very much for what you do, because it's so hard for me to find a spot over here.
It's hard for Caldwell personally to see someone taking advantage like that.
My dad's actually blind and paralyzed, so this hits home. This has been a battle for my whole life, having to find handicapped spots that are open and available.
So for him, every year, every holiday, every busy weekend.
We want to educate the public, let them know that they can't be doing this.
In Austin, Josh Hinkle, KXAN News.
Right, so that was the experience in one state in the U.S. One thing we are not sure of whether we have in Trinidad and Tobago a system where disabled persons who are drivers have a sticker or some kind of something on their vehicle to indicate that they are.
Which goes on the rearview mirror. The stem of the rearview mirror is hung there most of the time.
Right.
You know,
that will indicate that you have the right to access disabled parking.
Oh, who's
Bhawani?
Yeah, I was saying that we don't really have stickers. I think one guy, the head of the San Fernando Greater Chamber, Kiran Singh, was trying to do something like that. But I think it has to be a collaborative effort between all the stakeholders to get it right.
All right. So let's go to the other video quickly. Shortman, video B. Let's go to that.
It is a viral video that is raising questions about respect for people with accessibility issues in our city. Anna Vlahos with the violent confrontation sparked by a parking spot. Anna.
Roger, drivers need a special permit to use one of these accessible parking spots, but a new video has appeared online which captures someone who illegally parked in one of these spots and was confronted.
So why do you park in handicap spots? Are you handicapped? No. Well, what makes you so special that you can park in a handicap spot?
Record me, I'll break your phone.
You're on.
This is a YouTube video of a woman who was confronted after she parked in an accessible spot at a Tim Hortons in Toronto. We showed this video to Louise Russo.
Absolutely appalling, but it doesn't surprise me.
Russo became paralyzed from the waist down after she was shot during a botched mafia hit at a sandwich shop about 12 years ago. She was an innocent bystander. Since then, she's been an advocate for those with physical challenges.
You go to any mall or you're to, all the spaces are taken up. You know, you don't see too many people in wheelchairs or that really need it, you know? It's just, this is happening all the time.
Police, you assaulted me.
The woman in this video doesn't apologize for her actions. Instead, she yells and swears at the man who was recording her, and even appears to throw hot coffee at him.
You can park in a handicap.
The sense of entitlement and a total disregard for those that really need it.
Russo has been pushing the city and the province to introduce new regulations and stiffer fines for those who illegally park in accessible zones.
As of June of last year, there were 6 only parking enforcement officers for strictly, you know, for the handicapped parking, and they were on rotating shifts. So, you know, that's not enough of them.
You can park in a handicap.
We showed this video to others, and many say they find the woman's actions disgraceful.
I think it's horrible that somebody picked a handicap spot to park in when they're not handicapped.
Sometimes we just can't blame people for their ignorance if they're ignorant to the situation.
My daughter was 12 and a half years in a wheelchair. She just passed away recently. So I'm very aware of these spots, and it's unfair if other people use it.
What makes you so special that you can park in a handicap spot?
And I applaud the young man who took that video and had the courage to approach her.
Russo says she did meet with government officials last summer and presented them with this 2-page proposal. One of the items listed here is to have the fine raised from $450 to $1,000. She said that would be a huge deterrent. At King and Berkeley, Anna Vlahos, City News.
Nice.
Yep.
My favorite station.
So that was Toronto.
Right. So
Canada.
let's look at Trinidad and Tobago now. Famous gas station. Right.
So you're going to see 2 images first, and then the video that Garth took
Right.
at, in the gas station in Cocorite.
All right. So let's go to that. I took off. This is Massey Stores in Starlight. No, I'm limiting you anything, right? I just want to find out something for these people here. When you drove in here just now, you saw this was a handicap spot? You didn't notice? No. Okay, so them need to put up a sign here then. Huh? Yeah, all right, brother. No, folks, good morning. I stood up here a little while, but it didn't take me long because look what happened here. Right? This young man, 2 spots empty, but he decided to pull up in the handicap parking spot. And of course, in the famous Tia vehicle. You see, this is the thing. Even if he didn't see it, then whose responsibility it is to make people aware? But look, 2 spots available. Now, what this gas station should do, and this is a regular occurrence here. So what they should do is simple. Just put a sign here. Right. People could give no excuse that they can't see the markings and stuff. As simple as that. Now, folks, again, this gas station, those of you who frequent there, living in the west or heading west, everybody comes there who going to the beach, who living in the west and whatever. And I've seen people pull up there in all types of vehicles, come out in their bath suit and their trunks and go and buy stuff, and they park in the handicap parking spot. Now you see the nonchalance that we just experienced there. Mm-hmm. And I'm calling on this gas station to show up and put up the images from a please of. Did you put that one on Massey?
Yeah, it's
right.
in the video. It's at the top of the video.
Okay. Because there were pictures that I took of an example of what Massey did in Starlight, where they designated that spot right in front of the entrance to go in. So that, and I mean, you know, this is how we hope that it could be done for everybody. And you saw the video that I took yesterday. It had 2 spots available, but he pulled up in the handicap parking spot. And what I'm calling on that gas station to do what like Massey Stores did, right? Put it in blue, and then you put the sign in front so nobody has an excuse to park there. None. And let's start living like that now, people. Let's start looking out for each other and looking out for differently abled people in our society. All right? Lingo, good morning. And we take your calls now, 2 people. If those of you continue to leave your comments, and remember, while you're on YouTube, please like and subscribe to the channel. We'll very much appreciate it. Thank you very much for your continued and loyal support. Good morning, Lingo.
Good morning. Just remember, you're competing with the rain. If you're not hearing me clearly, okay?
All right.
All right. But,
we're hearing you good.
Congratulations on your national award.
Yes.
And did you get that manhole fixed in front of your house?
No, it's still open.
Wow.
After how many years you spoke about that?
Well, I'm talking about that since I living here 11, 12 years ago.
My God. And that hole is still out there? Wow. Lingo, I can't believe that. That is sad.
Yeah. But as I talk about this handicap parking, pardon my ignorance, but does PriceMart have the markings for the handicap parking in their car park?
Somebody commented to say PriceMart Movie Town does have it, but people still park in there anyway.
The rest would have it because, from what I understand, police and all this park there.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah, I've seen it too.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Right? Now, the thing is, with that, the person who took me to PriceMart some years ago, well, that's why I asked if it's written, because they would have known. Obviously, now I know that they would have seen the sign. And they asked the security, I have a disabled person with me, would you allow me to use the handicap parking for them to exit? And they allowed us. But the problem is, we don't have no handicap sticker, so you passing and seeing that vehicle parked here would think that somebody just using the spot, right?
Yeah.
The other problem is that even if we have handicap stickers, clearly I can't drive, so I would not be entitled to have one of those.
Right.
And that is a problem.
But I think that
But the
applies
relative-
though to it applies to anyone in the vehicle who may be disabled and needs to come out. Because I know for my part, when my mother was alive and I had to drive her around, I would use the disabled spot so that I could get her out of the car, because I had to open the door as wide as it could go so that she could come out and use her walker. So it is really for not just the drivers who are disabled, but any passengers in the vehicle who need that room.
Right, but I'm saying that how do I go about getting, even if they exist, how do I go about getting one of these stickers so that nobody can say that the vehicle that I came in, assuming that you didn't see me exit, is that abusing the privilege?
Well, these placards, as they call them, are electronically stamped, so that the only person who can get that, for instance, okay, like my brother takes my sister around from time to time. He applied for one, or she applied for one, and used his vehicle number, so that every time they have to go out, he can attach the placard to his windscreen, to his rearview mirror, and let it hang, so that once it's in a parking spot, there's now the meter maid. Remember, they call them meter maids. They have the electronic device that can actually compare the license plate to the placard, knowing that it's the right owner. Because there's a scam out there too, where people use them
But
just to get
unfortunately,
easy parking.
we don't have that system here in Trinidad and Tobago. And I think what we are saying now is something like that needs to be implemented.
So that
and
lingo, if you
enforced.
have somebody who drive you around, they can apply.
should be able to-
You should apply for one on their behalf, but they can only use it when you in the vehicle.
Yeah, I noticed. I know because there was a time. I don't know if you ever benefited from it that as an entertainer, but there was a time the government used to give us temporary bus passes.
Yes.
Bus pass for the for carnival time.
Yeah, I remember
But
that.
you must
Yes.
be in the vehicle when it's being used.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Because Mr.
Right?
Manning, I remember, authorized that for us to use during the carnival season.
But can I apply for one of these stickers? And who do I go to?
Good question.
Good question.
It would be the
Bhawani?
Ministry of Works.
It would be, well, I don't know how far TNT DPI has reached with that kind of negotiation, but they would be the more appropriate agency because of the fact that they're supposed to deal with all disabilities. I know, in my own experience, when my wife, she was physically disabled, so we had a thing we put on the dashboard which says disabled driver. Now, the other side of it is, in the olden days, people used to put the wheelchair sign in the back of the vehicle, but that could have a downside to it, because with the crime situation as it is, people see a car driven by a disabled driver, they must say, I could pounce on he, or I could pounce on she. You understand?
Yeah.
So they have to look for a new system that will alert. I think registration of all vehicles, registration of all drivers, and registration of all persons with disabilities who might have cause to use such service. It's essential. I know the Airports Authority over the last couple of years have rolled out a pilot project where even within the airport car park there are 14 parks for disabled drivers, and they are well laid out, because remember, the disabled driver will need a little more space than the average driver.
Yes,
So they have
yes.
all these symbols and signs. So if you happen to visit the airport, you would see what the layout is like. And for persons with disabilities who are traveling, we don't want to mind your business, but if you let the organizations like PAVI know that you are due to travel, let's say tomorrow or the day after, and you have somebody dropping you off at the airport, that we know, so that we can alert the airport authority to expect lingo, and he coming with PDF 99.99, driven by I don't know who. But this kind of information will help. So by the time you arrive at the airport, there will be somebody, an attendant, waiting for you to escort you through the process. Whether you
but that don't always work, because
it don't always work, because a lot of people don't know about it. So I'm making a public appeal. Pavi was part of the walkthrough at the airport last year, and we have been part of the discussions many years ago. So it is applicable. So if you're traveling, then you let your respective organization, whether it be for the deaf, whether it be for the physically challenged, whether it be for the blind, know that you're traveling and you would need the clearance or the assistance of airport officials. So if you could
6223937. Let's take a couple calls quickly for Lingo. Hold on. 6223937. If you have anything to say to these folks here, please, now is the chance. Lingo, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, but I'm saying that if it is, I have to travel, and I let them know 2 or 3 days in advance. The vehicle that I am likely to come to the airport with most likely would be a taxi. And now where you have all these different taxi services that ply their trade, I can't guarantee you until I book the ride who will be coming with me. We still have a problem.
Right. Understood.
Yeah, from that angle, you will still have a problem. This is why it's important that you book your ride early, so you put it in as part of the package. Now, I have used the service, and I use specific drivers. Or if I say, well, XYZ is driving a Hyundai or one of these vehicles, and I give them the vehicle number and the name of the driver, then the security guard out front will realize that they expect me to travel and they expect I am coming in a certain vehicle, so they will not hustle you or hassle you when we go to drop your passenger off. They would realize that you have permission, because there were times when, for example, the patrol van will pass around. Well, I said, I got permission from the airport authority. We don't care about that. We don't do that. So there is some communication lapse sometimes.
That is a discussion we need to continue to have. I hear the challenge with that already, and just what you just said, I know nothing about that, and Lord Jesus, I could, this country. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. How are you all doing?
Morning, good.
Morning.
Okay, so I have to say very good conversation.
Thank you.
Okay, so I know that Bhawani and Asha and Lingo will be able to identify this voice. I also belong to the community of visually impaired persons. And I wish this conversation had brought out a lot more things. But one of the contributions that I really wanted to make is that as a society, we need to start thinking inclusion. In everything that we do, we have to think inclusion. Because statistics are showing that even though we are born without a disability, at some point in our life, all of us will acquire a disability. Old age brings disability. And we need to start thinking buildings, education, employment, and everything like that. And that is what is going to start that is what is going to start the journey of mindset. You know, I know there have been a little argument in terms of the language that we're supposed to use, and we all face this. But the United Nations has a clear guideline as the language that we're supposed to use when we are addressing persons with disabilities. Yes, I as a visually impaired person, if you are really good with me and you say blind girl, I wouldn't have an issue with it. But if you and I are not very good and you say that to me, that would be very insultive.
Now,
so if you're addressing me as a visually impaired person, you're supposed to say the girl, the woman with visual impairment. You always see the person first, and then you see the disability after. And I really hope that this month would not be the only time that you will have this conversation, but it will continue to do so, because there are a lot of issues that we face. There are a lot of challenges, and nothing cannot change without our voices being out there.
Ma'am, can you stick a pin? Is it possible you could leave your contact information for us downstairs?
Sure, no problem. Or you can get it from any one of those lovely people you have on air.
Bhawani recognized. All right, good. Right.
Yeah, so Bhawani could give it to you all.
We'll continue the discussion, okay?
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. Hello, good morning.
She had a written script there, but she's straight from the heart.
Yes, I know. I could tell. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
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 I always admire Mr. Bhawani Prasad over the years. I heard you reading everything he has been doing over the years, and I don't think I hear you say that he used to do Seder. But when I used to do Seder,
yes,
I used to, yes, he used to come out and buy, because I used to deal with Lana. Lana used to sell different stuff. And he used to come out by himself, and he go and he do his sales and everything. I admire him for the way he did everything. Up until now, you will still see him moving about. If you don't know he's visually impaired, you would just say he's just any other body. So I love this program you all have today, that you're making the public aware. I am aware of a lot of things, and I try it. I do it. I'm not visually impaired. But I know, so as they will say, how you will hold a person, how you will cross them the road and all of that. I listen and I learn that for myself. So it's so nice that you all could bring that now, and I hope other people who are listening will take it into consideration what's to be done.
Thank you very much.
Because I had a neighbor. Thunder. I had a neighbor who lost his vision early, I think on his job or something, and you didn't know that he was visually impaired. So let's keep it moving on, and we who have our side still, that we will be there for them.
All right. Thank you very much, and we will continue the discussion. Let's take one more.
Thank you.
Well, before we do that, Bhawani and you and Asha, you have 1 minute. Your final comment. Bhawani.
I just want to do very quickly. Respect us for who we are. Appreciate us for who we are. And let's live together in love, peace, and harmony. For together we aspire, together we will achieve.
Asha, I think the station is off the air. A lot of people telling us that the station broke down. Those of you on Facebook and YouTube, you're hearing us. Was on the radio station, not yes. I don't know what happened there, but maybe the weather. Yeah. All right. Yeah, Asha.
Yes, well, I just would like to say the chain is as strong as its weakest link. And we as a disabled community, we are the weak links, and we look forward to the support of those around us to help to live our lives and, to be able to make a positive contribution. Yes, we maybe have a disability, but there's a lot that we can give, a lot that we can do, but we look forward to working together with everyone and the awareness that you guys are doing, that you will continue to do so. I agree with the caller earlier. I wish there was enough time to bring out so many other things, but hopefully we'll be able to do that in following interviews. And thank you again for having me today.
Ingo.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for taking our call.
Thanks for having me, but I hope this is not my part too, eh? That's your problem.
No, sir. Sorry. We intend to continue this conversation, and the young lady who just called in, and the first lady, and you, of course, we want to have this conversation with you too as well.
Absolutely.
Going forward. We have you all in mind, folks. Remember, and dependency is a different, type of intervention. All right. So.
Yes, and the station is off the air still.
Pardon?
Station still.
The radio station is off the air still.
All right. Okay. Well, but Mr. Daly Knock is here to read the news at 12. We hope certain parts will still be able to hear him. All right. Take care, folks.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Be safe.
So we better stay put and hear the news then.
Read the news to Dependency. What would that deal?
That's fine.
Yeah. Well, okay. Short man. Could you accommodate Mr. Enoch and you'll just send them the bill tomorrow, please God. But at least he can hear the news through Dependency Facebook page and YouTube channel. All right, in case they're not on the radio.